Welcome to Workshop Therapy. I'm Andrew, and today I'm joined by a guest who is quite possibly my favorite person to talk to in the entire world, my wife,
Quite possibly.
quite probably. You gonna say hi?
Hi. What am I supposed to say?
Well,
Hi.
we're having a conversation. Do you want to introduce yourself at all?
I don't usually introduce myself to you in a conversation.
That's true. Well,
We're not that old yet that I have to introduce myself to you every time we have a conversation.
that's true. So, this is my wife. For the one person who will listen, I know Keith will probably listen. So, introduce yourself to Keith, I guess.
I'm Andrew's wife. My name is Tamara. What else do you want me to say?
Great. So today's episode, I was kind of debating between doing like a research-based, here's a paper, here's how this applies, and how it can apply to our mental health in the shop or creativity, something to that effect, or talking to my wife. And I opted to talk to my wife because I enjoy talking to my wife, and we have good conversations all the time. Right now, we're going through a few momentous decisions, maybe is a good way to describe it. And there's a lot of mental health challenges that go along with that. You go down the path of making a decision and you wonder, am I making the right decision or am I not making the right decision? And then you mull it over in your head and you become paralyzed by indecision. And so, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, that paralysis by analysis maybe, or, decision-making difficulties, which can apply to life decisions, or it can also apply to like a creative pursuit as well, woodworking or sewing or something you'd like to do.
Well, it applies to like art and like writing too. Like I find I have lots of ideas, but I like picking it and deciding that I'm going to just work on this one thing is something that I struggle with. Just probably why making bigger decisions are hard too.
You know what I'm thinking? Just in case, turn off your mic and let's just talk into this one mic.
How do I turn it on?
Just hold the button on it.
Okay.
This way we can lean in closer to each other. Hopefully it picks up the volume.
Okay.
We'd probably miss the Yeti instead of these.
Probably.
Anyway. So you were saying it applies to all of the creative endeavors?
Well, I think so. I don't like drawing or painting or whatever, and there's always a point in the process too, or writing, where you're like in the groove, and then suddenly like you guess yourself, or something doesn't look quite right in the painting, and you can't, and you there's like that point where you pull back or you stop, and sometimes you go back to it later, and it's better, and you can fix those changes. But I think often we just don't go back. But it like looms in your head, like, oh, I've got this thing that I should finish, and I should, like, not that you're like consciously thinking about it all the time, but I know like subconsciously I am. And I think about, oh, I should go back and do that, but I'm stuck at this block. There's this decision I have to make. I'm either going to like change what I did and go back and redo it, or I'm going to keep going with this thread or whatever that maybe isn't exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't have any unfinished projects in my shop at all. And what?
I didn't know we got to just like outright lie on here.
It's our podcast. You can do whatever you want on it.
Perfect.
Yep. I never.
Yes, you have no unfinished project. I am not waiting for anything ever.
Yep.
That's sarcasm.
I missed it.
Okay. That's why I explained for you.
Yes. How about your book? Like when you were writing your book, did you experience that when you were writing it? Not that I noticed it at all, ever.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm too.
Why do you think it took me a year to get it? Yeah. I think you experience it, and it's that decision paralysis. And I was reading and listening to some stuff on decision making this afternoon just because I knew we were going to talk about decision making. And so, and it's been something that's been on my mind for a while. So I've been listening to a few things, but it's easy to get into that paralysis mode. And I think we do it based on like fight or flight, right? And there's also like that play dead. Like there's possums for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? And I think like from some other books that I'm reading and some things right now, I think as a mom, I'm not going to say this right, but I almost feel like the way that we become moms in today's society, we kind of have to learn to play dead. Like our decisions are so much taken from us and our emotions are big, and we can't let everybody see that we're like a total mess. And you don't want people to see that you're a total mess, and you need to be put together, that it's almost like we learn to play dead, and it makes decision making become harder.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you just put the decision behind the door so you don't.
Well, and like the way that the medical system works, like for me, at least in my experience, I didn't get a lot of say in what went on in any of the 3 births for multiple reasons, all of them being stressful. But and based on a book that I've been reading lately, it takes your power and your control away. So a decision that I could have made at 18 without thinking, I now overthink to the point that I play possum and run away because I don't trust myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so like that, and I think like beyond just like those things that happened in the hospital, like as parents, there's just so much that's out of our control, and other people that are kind of running our day, that little decisions get harder, because a decision of what to make for breakfast, that used to be really easy. Now it's, oh my goodness, what am I going to get 3 children to eat? And how could I try and make only one meal with slight modifications for each of the 3, like dietary or taste and texture or whatever it is? I feel like you're like decision fatigue before you even get past breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
And so then when we have these big life decisions to make, it's even more overwhelming because you're so overwhelmed by all the little things. And I think that's the way in like creative things too, right? Like when you get this big project you want to do, but you can't get past all the little things to get.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about is when things are functioning well around here is typically when we have things like meal plans in place.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the meal plan doesn't become a rigid, well, Tuesday is Taco Tuesday, therefore we're going to have tacos.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is in place, and so you don't have to make the decision. But if there wants to be a change to the decision, then it's easier to make for some reason, or it makes it more open, right? So in like a creative pursuit, like woodworking, for example, making a cabinet, you have your plan and you're moving forward, and I don't know, like a particular detail strikes your eye and you want to incorporate that into that, makes it easier than just having you're right, like that creative block, the blank box of overwhelmingness and despair.
No, but it's true. And like in that, I'm gonna say like in I'm a lot. I'm a child of the 90s. That's the way it goes.
Totally.
But
like, yeah,
I'm trying really hard not to.
Well, when we first met, my wife was a total valley
I
girl.
was not. Um, okay. I I think rarely, but it does happen. I think also that like when we were on holidays, it was easier because we only had certain things. So you only had so many outfits. Like we had 7 outfits and then that was it. And so you either decided you were going to wear what you wore yesterday that kind of didn't smell horrible yet, or you had something else, like there was less decision fatigue on holiday because and we'd spent a long time planning all the meals, having everything bought and everything was ready. And so it was just a matter of like Monday, lifting up the bed, pulling out the food for the week, stocking the pantry, and we knew what we were having. And I think it was easier on the kids too. Like they knew what they were having, and I don't think they struggled with meals almost as much. I mean, we tried to make the meals as friendly for everyone as possible, but I think they ate things on the trip that at home would have been more of a struggle. And then you wonder how much of that is just decision fatigue on their part as well, just in a day.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions to be made when you're 2.
Well,
What thing to play with, and 5 and 13. Yeah, I think as parents, you sometimes forget how difficult it is to be small
yeah.
when you're learning and growing and everything.
When your whole day is based on trying to go to the toilet, those are decisions that are ingrained in us now that we don't have to make those decisions. Their body, and then I think maybe that's what a lot of the podcasts and things I've been listening to, that's a lot of what I'm getting to, is that atomic habits maybe thing where you need to get those routine things down so that you free up your mind to deal with the other things. Like in Harry Potter, right? Dumbledore's pensive. You can take those threads out and kind of get them.
Yeah, you don't. If the decisions are a habit, you don't have to make the decision anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like the conclusion that I've come to today is we're spending too much time on decisions that could be habits. So the big decision is becoming even harder. And then if you transfer that into like painting or woodworking, if how to sand things or how to set things up becomes habit, then you're not spending so much time trying to figure out those little basic things because you have a basic framework of, okay, these are the steps, how I lay it out, sketch art, whatever you're going to do. It's all ready to go. And that's a habit. And it's a habit that you clean up sweep the shop floor afterwards, which saves you from getting giant piles of dust and, sharing your dust in my clothes and all that kind of thing.
And complaining and all of that.
Yeah. But it's true, right? And that goes for house chores or for like kids fatigue, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the putting systems in place to organize things. Like you, I was just thinking of I forget which university did it, but it was one of the Ivy League type schools. Anyway, they built a new extension onto the campus, some new buildings and stuff, but they didn't put any walking paths down because they were going to wait and see where people walked. And so a year after they established all of the landscaping and stuff, they came back and they saw where all the grass was beat down and destroyed. And then that's where they put the walking paths. So I know, like, when we were going to
I was just thinking that our daughter did dance at our old university this last year. And the walking path was there, but nobody used it. Everybody went through the shortcut through the trees. And now there's a path there.
Yeah.
But that was like 18 years of destroying before they put the path down. But how much of that is like what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because you make pathways in your brain and if we just keep going down that route, we're just going to keep wearing it further and further instead of changing it so it's.
Yeah, instead of, and that's where habits are a two-edged sword. You can make a good habit or you can make a bad habit, and if you ingrain the bad habit, a bad work, whether it's whether it's a day-to-day habit or a habit of workmanship, you reinforce and re-ingrain that into your system, and that's where, like, continually making the decision every morning of, well, what do you want to have for breakfast today? Last last Tuesday we had poached eggs, and this Tuesday we're going to have poached eggs probably, but you have to make that decision again. It you're re you're reinforcing the indecision,
Mm-hmm.
and then, yeah, like you said, when you get bigger decisions coming, it then.
Well, yeah, I think to some degree, like the way that the public school system and stuff works right now, it reinforces that inability to make decisions because you're always basing it on what the group's going to do and what the teacher asked me to do. And you're not self-motivated in that learning process and in that decision-making process. Somebody always has control over you. And I'm not like, oh, we should just let our kids, not wear clothes and run around naked killing each other. I don't know if they were killing each other,
That is quickly.
Thank you, Lord of the
Don't
Flies.
have Lord of the Flies in our house.
We don't.
We have some flies in the house, but there's no Lord of them here.
Well, because it can't keep the screen door closed. But no, I think like there's that factory likeness of it that kind of beats out your ability, and I think it's very detrimental to creative people.
So then, but then what's the difference between that and ingraining a whole bunch of habits in your life so you don't have to make decisions versus
I think because you're deciding what habits you want ingrained. And yes, there are some habits I'm a school teacher, right? Like, it's not like I don't, but there are some habits that are awesome. And there's some aspects of school that are really helpful that teach you to, that you have to do some things you don't want to do and you have to complete an assignment and that kind of thing. But on the flip side, I find a lot now, there's a lot of people who are totally fine telling the student, well, as long as it was your best effort, it's good. And I think that is detrimental, because you're assessing the,
yeah, they're not creating their own assessment. And like that's something that I've been trying more consciously to do with our kids, is when they come up with their artwork, instead of just being the parent that says, oh, that's wonderful, it's the most wonderful design in the whole world, which we all know it isn't. But as parents, we tell our children that their thing is the greatest thing that I've ever seen. But I've been making a conscious effort to turn it back on them and say, how do you feel about it? What do you think about it? What's your favorite part about it?
It's very Elfie Conan.
Yeah, it is very Elfie Conan. I've been trying.
But on that side too, like the carrots and sticks, school is very reward centered. And I will say, like, as someone who grew up in a school environment with a dad as a teacher, like I grew up at school. I don't remember not ever being involved in helping with bulletin boards and all that kind of thing. Like, I loved that side of things. But at the same time, like, there was always a reward. Even like we would always stay late and help my dad set up for Christmas concert for the school, and do all the taping down of the wires and lights and all that kind of stuff. But there was a reward because we were going to get pizza. And like the book reading clubs, how many kids stopped, and I am guilty of this. I stopped reading books when I wasn't getting a reward for it.
Yeah. I got bored in reading club because most of the kids in my class, they'd be reading like, Dr. Seuss and all the simple stuff so they could get through, probably, I guess, now that I'm looking back.
Yeah, it's because they wanted more.
Yeah, that's the problem with punishments and rewards is then you do the minimal effort.
Mm-hmm.
But I got bored with reading club because I didn't want to read the little crap. And so while my friends were reading Dr. Seuss, I was reading Lord of the Rings. And so they won out because they got 15 books to my 1. But I think in the long run, I think I won. But
it's a different, like, and that's the thing, right? It teaches you to, it's almost like you get taught to do the least amount to get the most, right?
Yeah. But I
And so
think,
I think in your creativity, then you can see where you're trying to like, maybe it's just me, but I can see where I try to like, how can I kind of like do the least amount to get what I want in the end?
well, I was,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I can see that. What I was going to say is that maybe that's why I've gone down the entrepreneurial path instead of just because you hear advice from people, get a job that makes enough money that you can do the fun things on your time off.
Hmm.
Whereas I've always wanted to go towards the other end of the spectrum of do something you love so you don't have to work a day in your life, right? Which is also a BS thing to pursue as well, right? Because there's always going to be days that you work, and then there's like one of the decisions that we're dealing with right now is I mean, everybody who listens to this podcast is going to know, but I'm dealing with a repetitive stress injury in my hand, and so my career has changed or will be
Changing.
changing.
It's in
And
process. Yeah.
but to be truthful, I'm also kind of burnt out from it as well. So I'm looking forward to the change, but that's where, you know, I think if we were just strictly making decisions based on punishment and reward, maybe I would be less willing to make the change because this is a big sacrifice, I guess,
Hmm.
for lack of a better way to explain it.
No, I agree. And do you think, um, as a parent, part of the reason we get parental burnout too is because we don't get a reward for all the things we do?
Yep.
Like it was almost easier when they were newborns because you got all the, like it was hard. I'm not saying the newborns was easy, it was hard. But like that first smile was a big reward and the next. And as you go older and older and they have more opinions and you're dealing with more decision fatigue of, oh my goodness, how can I get this kid to do this, or what's the next step, or what book do I need to read to help you, or all of those things, the rewards get fewer and fewer and fewer. And then you get a teenager
Yeah.
and that changes everything again. um but as a parent, like you're not getting that. So unless if you don't develop that intrinsic motivation that you're doing it for the greater purpose and all of that kind of thing, parenting gets really heavy.
Yeah, it does.
And that, I think that's the same with creating something. If you're creating something because you're making it to make money, you're doing it for that reward and it becomes heavy and it becomes harder to do. It's easier for me to create something when it's for me to give to someone because I want to make them happy, or I wanted, I want to try out this new thing with my dopamine hit for my ADHD, but you know what I mean? Like there's those kind of things that are easier to do.
Yeah, it's always easier to do something you're wanting to do that's expanding your horizon, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the when I'm making something, I get excited about making something that I want to make. And I mean there is a part of me that gets excited about the ooh, I've got a big order of cutting boards or whatever for the real estate agent. And then
By the end of it,
by
you
the end
hate
of it,
them.
I hate them and I say I'm never going to do them again.
Yeah.
And then fast forward
Yeah.
like
And then you do it
a
again.
few months, 6 months to a year, and then I'm doing the same nonsense again. But yeah, so how does that all factor into the decisions that we have to make here in the near future then?
Um, I think my like wrap up take home sentence or whatever is I need to, at least for the next bit in our life, find that routine, get those things that can be automatic, so that it's freeing me up to focus my mind and attention on the things that I need to make good decisions, to make bigger decisions. Stop wasting my energy on small things that do matter, but that I can make automatic.
Yeah, that's where, what was it, last year? when we were actually good about keeping our budget up to date. I switched. I used to be
Yeah,
at
if we have like the budget up to date and the meal plan up to date and like morning routine that works, it's so different.
yeah. When I was with the budget, I remember um, I've always been I've always wanted to make sure I pay my bills, right? Like I've always wanted to log in and go, okay, I'm going to pay this bill, and this bill today, and then that bill the next day, blah blah blah. But we were listening to a money management podcast or a book. I don't remember what it was. The guy talked about automating as much of that as you can because it saves time and you make less mistakes. And so when we're good about the budget, I suddenly realized that that's the case, and so I switched to doing everything as much as possible as automated payments, and suddenly I don't miss any payments, and I don't have to think about it anymore. It's not, it doesn't take up that mental space and add to that mental burden of, oh, I got to do that.
Yeah, and I think like for me, meal planning is an immense mental burden. I feel mentally like burnt out thinking about creating the meal plan. Like I'm not kidding. It's one of those things that just is like a real trigger annoyance for me.
That's why we never remembered to do it more than 1 week in every other month.
Well, because it's like, what are we going to eat today? And who's going to eat it? And who's not going to eat it? And how do I get what I want to eat while still having children that aren't starving themselves because they don't want to eat it?
Well, you know what they say about that. Children will eventually eat the food.
Yeah, I'm not sure one will in our house. And I know that myself as a child held out for a long time. So, on the flip though, that when you're talking, I think if I can get it automatic, like we do have those things that are like, it's Taco Tuesday, it's Fish Friday, it's those things that make that decision making process easier. Breakfast and lunch I hate. I'm going to be totally honest. Planning dinner still doesn't stress me out near as much as breakfast and lunch. And I think because a lot of it is based around things, or a lot of the way that I grew up, those things that I ate routinely, I can't eat now.
Yeah, and our kids can't either.
Yeah. And so before I even get out of the book to look at it, I'm stressed out. And so much of breakfast and I feel like, and lunch especially, culturally are very processed meals.
Yeah, they tend to be very brown.
Yeah, and tend to be things that you can just buy ready made. And due to allergies in our house, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, yeah.
A lot of decision stress starts out the day.
Yeah, and so then tying it into the creative thing, honestly, by the time lunch comes around and it's like we've had lunch and night, we do our quiet time when I'm usually what I would like to do. My ideal utopian world would be my creative hour then to do work on my book or work on some art or whatever I want to do. But I'm so burnt by that point. I don't do it.
Yeah, the kids end up being quiet, watching something
or reading, and I just end up doom scrolling or laundry or something mindless that I just, because I can't handle trying to get to like sit down and make a start.
So what's the takeaway then for people? Like what would be takeaway of if you're feeling burnt out, creative block, stress, something like that? Would it be to make a plan?
I think so. I think that was my kind of like summation today, is we need to make a plan, right? Make those things that we can and start small. It was like working out for me. It had to start really small and then it becomes a habit that I wasn't thinking about, and found a time that worked and all of that. And so I think that needs to happen on things like meal planning and like a morning and evening routine. So that, because I feel like those are the most stressful times for us. And because of how high stress they are, then the decision fatigue carries over into our things that we have to do in a day, including your shop stuff. Like I know you if you have to make breakfast and look after the kids because I'm doing something else, you don't get to the shop even if you're home.
Yeah, I've been home and off work here for a week, and I've been out to the shop for, we went out and fixed the iPad this morning, I guess, and that's the longest I've spent in the shop since we've been home from our trip.
No, you've been out there a couple of times longer than that.
No, not
Well, I don't know
longer.
how long you were there. I was shopping. So I don't know.
We were out at the shop for an hour or so.
But I think that for me, that very much affects it. And that's the same as why, like, for me, creative time after the kids go to bed, everybody's like, oh, get your me time. You're so burnt out at that point. I'm not ready to be creative. Maybe everyone else is much better at this than I am, but I don't feel like I have anything left to give to be creative. Or there's those times where you feel like super creative, like midnight, and that's a terrible idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're fatigued the next day, and then that just makes...
You start off on a downhill spiral.
Yeah, it shuts down your executive function.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading a study that sleep deprivation of, what is it? I think it's something like, if you're awake for it's less than 24 hours, 20 hours, something like that, it's the equivalent of having a 0.08 blood alcohol level. Like, it's quite debilitating.
Yes, I know.
Says the woman who never sleeps because we have 3 kids, and I'm blessed to be able to sleep like a log and not wake up.
It's true.
Or cursed, depending on how you look at that. So the takeaway message, if you're dealing with creative burnout, parental burnout, work burnout, decision fatigue type of things, is to establish little habits that help with those decisions that you don't need to make. Like, if you're the type of person, maybe like for a meal plan, for example, if you're the type of person that doesn't mind eating a smoothie every morning, or a fried egg, or a piece of toast, and just eating the same meal for breakfast every single day, then just make that your meal plan, right? You don't actually have to have a different thing every day for breakfast.
No, like when we were camping, it worked well to do like Tuesday, Thursday oatmeal, Monday, Wednesday, Friday we did eggs and bacon or eggs and sausage or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I think there's things like that could really be helpful. But it's not like there's a magic thing, and I think it really is little. To get to the point where you're ready to make those big decisions, I just don't think you can be. That's what I'm going to try anyway. That's this week.
It's a good goal. That's where I remember listening to a few different podcasts where they talked about, just get out into your shop, for example, or your studio for 5 minutes and put away a couple things, and then you'll find that decision, you make the decision to go, I'm going to go out to the shop for 5 minutes and clean something up every single day for the week, and you'll find that at the end of that period of time that you'll have spent, not more than 5 minutes most days, you'll have then progressed your project along, or you would have, whatever it is, whether it's a piece of furniture or a piece of art or a book or anything like that. So start with the small goals, and then those small goals build into the bigger goals. So that's good advice for ourselves.
Sure.
Probably good advice for other people.
Plan for this week, right?
Yeah.
Automate what we can and see how it goes.
Thank you for being my second guest and my most favorite guest. No offense to Keith. You're my favorite guest that I've ever had on this podcast.
It better be.
So thanks for listening. And I'd encourage you to make this effective in your life, to take something that you felt was important in today's conversation, if you felt there was something important, and apply it today within 24 hours. Maybe share it with somebody.
Yeah.
That will help you. That will help you reinforce it in yourself. When you share something with somebody, when you teach somebody else a principle that you just learned or just figured out, that helps reinforce it and re-ingrain it in your own,
Creating
in
those
your
pathways in your brain.
creating the mental pathways that help you be a better person every day, help you with your mental health, help you with your creativity, and help you be more productive. Hope you're all having a great week, and we will talk to you later.
Bye.
That was a nice thought.
You can get rid of that one.